Hello all! Today I'll be working on a scarf made by a warp from my stash and a weft in the Aurora borealis line of hand-spun yarn by KittyCat Spins, who mailed me a whole bunch of absolutely gorgeous yarn and who I'm incredibly fortunate to call a YouTube follower. I hope you enjoy. My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with second-hand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. First, a bit of an explanation, for those who are new, on why I've developed this adaptive warping method. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So for time's sake, know that I have joints that don't work, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat, it contracts into a smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't need to be up and down and all around and having tachycardia, racing heart. That stresses out my medical alert cat Penelope Calico. Let the record show that she is not actually trained, she is just a calico who has the tortitude opinions of my heart rate and is going to scream her opinions of my heart rate at me until I do as she says and actually sit down. She has also learned to wield her pica against me by chewing on things very loudly in the other room, and then chewing on things near my armchair, so I have to get up really quickly to stop her from killing herself, and then, I get up really quickly, so I have to sit down and collapse, and then she'll get on my lap and be very smug. It's quite annoying. The loom I use is a 15-inch wide shocked cricket loom. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It ranges from $200 to $250, so it's one of the cheaper looms on the market, and it's a freaking workhorse. I love this thing so much. It's light enough that I can lift it easily, but sturdy enough that I'm not terrified to drop it. A bit of a time skip, but with the warp threads sorted, I'm lifting up the loom to release the warping board from the loom, gathering the warp threads into one large bundle and using the back of my neck to drape them over and keep them tidy and out of the way while I collapse the warping board and get it tucked out of the way. I use terry cloth towels to cushion the warp threads. This helps prevent the finished weaving from being tighter at the ends and looser in the middle, creating a sort of sausage profile in the weaving. Periodically, I have to throw these in the washing machine because they will become a bit compacted and therefore less useful for that tension keeping, but it's a worthwhile trade-off and I don't have to deal with a bunch of cardstock slipping all over the place. It's really dry in my studio today, so I'm having to finger comb the merino blend of this warp as it's trying to cling to itself a lot more than I would prefer, but I'm also not at a point where I want to spray it with some cold water in order to decrease that static. The way I warp has me cutting the warp loops at the end of winding the warp. This is what's easiest on my body. It won't work for everyone, but that's okay. This isn't a great angle, but I'm being careful to pay attention to how the warp threads are laying on the back bar of the loom, and the right hand thread goes through the smaller hole in the rigid heddle reed. It's not critical, and some minor mistakes aren't the end of the world, but it does make it easier to keep the tension of the warp threads even across the entire weaving. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, which acts as sort of a tip jar. Also, now that there are so many of you absolutely fantastic and wonderful subscribers, I've been able to link the online Hoksong weaving shop, so feel free to check out the unique handwoven products. I'm working on getting a YouTube membership set up for everyone, but in the meantime, and this next bit is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy, I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed your cousin. Feel free to message me, and I'll get you my payment deets. I take Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal for this nonsense. And there's new, exciting things in the works. Some friends and I have started a new nonprofit, the Mill River Marginalized Artists Collective, or MRMAC, which provides support, resources, and opportunities for marginalized artists by marginalized artists and our supporters. We're dialing some things back a bit as we realized we bit off more than we can chew. Right now our goals are to get practiced at the Vending for You program, a program where we as volunteers apply to, advertise for, and attend markets on behalf of ourselves and other marginalized artists, and the Booth Bees program, where we support other artists at art markets and work as substitutes in case a solo artist is sick or has an emergency and can't miss the income a market would bring. We're also working on monthly clothing pop-ups and an art supply upcycling program. Basically realizing we're not ready for full-blown event management, but are ready to offer support in smaller but just as meaningful ways. Essentially, we're unionizing and forming a guild for the type of mutual aid networks that have already been in practice, but making them more accessible to everyone. If you're watching this video on the day it came out, tomorrow is our first day of the Vending for You program being put into practice. I will be posting as much as I can, but wish us luck, knock on wood, all that jazz. It should be a great market day. MRMAC will be in East Hampton at City Space tomorrow, so here we go. And also Hoksong Weaving will be at the East Hampton Farmers Market on Sunday, so it is a double booked weekend for me. And I'm very thankful that MRMAC exists because it means I get some time to myself on Saturday afternoon and evening to go get hot pot with my partners, because we've been through a lot recently and I'm trying to make sure that I'm balancing work and life and home and, working from home and doing all of this nonprofit work. It's really easy to lose track of my own energy and my own spoons and my own time, and I'm really, really thankful that MRMAC is helping me balance that. But all of the links are attached down below. One of the best ways to help is to follow and share everything we post in order to get our content past algorithm suppression, because our existence as marginalized artists has been deemed political, and apps like Insta and Facebook aren't going to share our work as easily. Attaching the warp to the bottom apron bar is pretty easy. I finger comb it, get it separated into bits about 4 to 5 warp threads wide, separate these bits into 2, and then do a half hitch tie to the apron bar. I start out from the middle so that the bottom apron bar isn't, flip-flopping all over the place. Other artists and weavers do it differently, and again, that's all right. This is what works best for me and might work well for you. It depends on how you're doing things. Getting the bottom terry cloth towel in and cinching that shut, or winching that shut rather, not cinching, and getting things tighter. If you have hypermobile fingertips, you're going to want to put finger braces on. You can't, for this next step, you can't really tell, but I am being very careful to brace my thumbs so that I'm not either pulling too hard on the fabric or bending my fingertips backwards, because they will absolutely do that if you are not careful and you have hypermobile fingertips. I am starting this scarf with some odds and ends of little bits of nice soft merino yarn that I have before I get to the main event. I do have the main event coming, don't worry, but I really wanted to get some of this used up, and I really love the asymmetrical border that I've developed for these particular scarves. A sneak peek of the Aurora Borealis. I'm so incredibly excited to work with that. And here we go into the weaving. I'm going to need to adjust the camera. There we go. And getting things nice and rested on the belly, pulling the shirt down, and starting out with this merino. And here we go. I prefer to start in this position, but everyone, again, whatever works best for your body is the name of the game for weaving. There are quote-unquote right and wrong ways to do things, but if you get the finished product and you're not putting yourself in pain, putting yourself not in pain is just as important as the finished product, honestly. Getting that base down, and again, I'm not worrying too much about making sure that there's no overlap. I find that the scarves work better with some overlap of the weft. Especially for these wools and these wool scarves, they cling to each other nicely, and it makes sure that it doesn't unravel, especially when I'm working with a wide variety of fiber types. Even though all of this is wool/wool blends, different amounts, different types of wool will react differently, and I find just pinning those stray ends in place and accepting that overlap is going to happen is better for how I prefer to weave. And now, starting with the Aurora Borealis, this is such gorgeous yarn. It's very fine spun, 2 strands, then spun together, and it's just so freaking pretty. There's little bits of shimmer, there's a wide variety of variegation, there's some blue highlights, some pink highlights, some purple highlights, and I can't wait to showcase this absolutely gorgeous yarn with this particular weft. I chose a bicolored weft so that I could, shift the colors and the perception of how this particular bit of yarn works. And I'm so incredibly excited for this. And you'll see that I'm sort of crisscrossing on my shuttle. This allows me to get more yarn on the shuttle at once than if I was just going around and around over the center. It's so freaking pretty. I know that I've said that so many times about everything that KittyCat Spins has spun, but the Happy Stims, it's just this yarn is so utterly gorgeous. It's so pretty. It's such a delight to work with. I don't know how she made it smell that nice. Musty wools are the bane of my existence, and just it wove up so beautifully too. It clung to the warp in such a wonderful way. And I cannot recommend KittyCat Spins yarn enough for other weavers. If you're in the UK and you are fortunate enough to be able to order some, please do so. I'm going to have so much fun weaving with all of this. It's so freaking gorgeous. And I know that I keep saying that, but I don't have any other words. And Emma is an absolute delight of a human being. I was having a really hard time, and I was, honestly vague posting about it in a way that I shouldn't have on one of my in one of my videos. And Emma went, "No, my weaving blorbo, they're sad." And it was just so nice to get that email with the pictures of Emma's cats who are named after Tamara Pierce characters, and it was just, this entire thing has been absolutely lovely and been an absolute beacon of happiness and knowing that I'm making a solid difference in people's lives. Because, yeah, I've got the imposter syndrome, just a little bit, it's being worked on, but, just a little bit. And just, YouTube wasn't supposed to actually work well, but it has, and I have everyone here to thank for that. And I know that, YouTube content creators say this all the time, but no, they are incorrect. I have the best followers. I have the best fans. Y'all are incredible. A bit of Vanna White as I show things off and tying off the scarf fringes. I prefer to do 2x2 warps tied into a fringe of 4, but will do a double sliding knot of 3 if I don't have a wide enough warp. I am being very, very careful to not tie this too tightly and ruin the incredible yarn that I've been working with. I deliberately wove this in a much looser weave than I usually would, both because of the delicateness, I'm not entirely sure, of the hand spun yarn. I wanted to show it off. I wanted this to be light and flowy as much as I could. The warp is actually thicker than the yarn, so it's got a lovely, it'll have a lovely pliancy to it, a lovely drape, and I don't want to screw that up by tying these knots too tightly. Rolling, 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 rawhide, or unrolling rather. I apologize for my singing, I know it's not great. But getting things unrolled, getting a first full look at this scarf, getting a first feel for the drape of the fabric, and I'm so incredibly thrilled. This turned out so good, and yeet goes the towel, and here we go for tying off this end as well, and almost done. I usually steam block my scarves, but because this has the bits of nylon flashing or acrylic flashing in it, and the instructions very clearly said do not iron, I am not doing so, and which is also part of why I did the more open weave than I usually do for this particular hand spun yarn, so that I would not necessarily have to steam block it to have that drape. But usually I steam block because it helps to soften the wool fibers into each other and relax into the weave without blocking. If you're doing a very thick yarn, very thick weaving pattern, you can get wrinkles because the weave tends to be stiff without the added heat and water. But because I'm not doing that, I'm going to eyeball the length of the fringe that I want and use the don't ask me how much I spent on these good shears, and trim it. I have accidentally made it so that my partners are terrified to even look at these shears, which honestly, given that I moved in with them while there was some drama going on Crafty Lesbian TikTok about how this one wife used her other wife's shears to spatchcock a chicken and like did not realize the severity of what she had done. Yeah, eventually the crafty wife purchased a new set of shears and it all turned out okay, but whew, my partners were a bit alarmed because the general rule, and I'm hoping I don't get demonetized for this, is if you dull my good shears, I will dull them further by stabbing you with them. I grew up in a family with a chronic shortage of scissors, and so there are so many scissors in my household that you don't need to use mine. And also, I've, again, accidentally made my partners absolutely terrified of even looking at these shears, which I'm not going to be too mad about. But now about half an hour of tying these fringe knots. This isn't absolutely necessary for a lot of warps, but I like to do it because it creates a more finished, polished looking product towards the end. And I want to do this yarn justice. This is absolutely freaking gorgeous hand spun, like just yarn. Like, oh my goodness, that got mailed to me all the way from England. I'm going to be doing my utmost to utterly respect this yarn and the amount of work that went into it. This is hours and hours and hours of hand labor from someone who didn't have to do this. And I'm going to respect this kindness, and I'm going to treat it with the respect that it deserves. And we now have a scarf. Thank you for coming along as I wove this scarf. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped. And I hope that you have a truly excellent week, and a sneak peek of the fact that I'm going to be having a video coming up soon about how my partner ended up convincing me to let her get me a new computer. And just, it's so pretty. It's so pretty, everyone. Everyone, look at how pretty it is. Just the yarn. Oh my goodness. What the heck? How? Okay.